So the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 has been out for 6 months, and I've been using it solidly all the time for about 4 months. And ever since I got this camera, people have been asking me a lot of questions about it. So it seems to be super popular still in 2024. So now that I've had a lot of hands-on time with it, I think we can talk about its pros, its cons, and if it's the right camera for you. Now, the first con that I'm going to talk about, and the reason why I'm talking about it first, is because when I first got this camera, it was the first thing that I noticed, and it's how you have to compose your shots. The thing is, the screen being held to eye level, which is right here, I'm holding it eye level, look at that composition. There's way too much headroom. So in order to get a good composition, you have to hold it way low, and now it's super hard to see that screen. And it feels like you're just like crouched over just to get in the proper rule of thirds. And sometimes it's really awkward because, again, look, when I raise it up to eye level on the screen, you're basically missing her body. And I think they did this because, Katarina, turn around. When you are talking to someone up close and doing like an interview shot like this, like a talking head, that's eye level and that looks good. But the second you move further away, it looks super strange. You have to really move the camera down low like this. So this is what I mean. When I'm holding it at eye level, you can see that the framing isn't so great. And in order to get that really beautiful, cinematic type framing, if you will, you really got to get lower. But look where I am now. Look how I'm holding it. I can't even really see the screen unless I'm like crouched down. Now I wish they had a way so that you could tilt the screen. So DJI, in your next version for the Pocket 4, maybe give us a little bit of a tilt if possible. The engineers could make that happen. That would be much better than this shot, because that is no good. Now, the one con that I really don't like, not just with this specific camera, but like these small devices in general, is the fact that they don't have a removable battery. It's with the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, it's with the DJI mics. And I think that when you are buying a piece of tech, especially something that costs around 600 euros, you want to be able to know that it can last a long time. And if for some reason this battery starts to lose its charging ability, the camera's done. You really have to replace it. And I don't love that trend with all the tech. I think it could have been really easy for DJI to implement this small little cube as the battery. I know they have the larger battery grip, but I like this smaller compact setup. And they could have easily just integrated that little battery in and made it removable and swappable, and so that you could just buy multiple batteries. The next con that I have to talk about is the touchscreen. Now, the screen itself is a pro. It's a beautiful screen. It's bright enough in bright daylight, just like this. I can see myself very clearly, and it is a sharp image. But the touch itself is sensitive in not the best way. Like when you're trying to swipe over to bring up the settings, like it's a swipe left to bring up some settings, it's swipe up, swipe down, swipe left. Sometimes it doesn't engage right away. And then sometimes when you're trying to change things, like how many times have we had it where I've tried to change the ISO and I'm trying it's on 100 ISO and I need to get it a little more light into it, so I'm trying to get it to like 200. It'll just, I'll flick it to 200, but then suddenly it'll just jump to 400. And then I'm scrolling it back down to 200, and then it goes back on down to 100. Like, the haptic points where it lands isn't very precise. And it's the same with the EV compensation. And that just makes it really annoying to use. The second thing about it is there's just too many swipes and touches and actions just to get to a single setting. So I wish that DJI, if you're listening in the next version, would just give us an extra custom button or a little scroll wheel on the side. Or the one thing that I use the most often is changing the gimbal mode. So I'll change it from follow to lock for a nice horizon, or the FPV mode. How many times have I changed it? And I keep talking about having like a little toggle switch that I can just quickly flip. Because the thing about this camera is it's out all the time and it's amazing for spontaneous moments. But in order to get those spontaneous moments, you have to be able to act quickly and change your settings fast to get the beautiful image out of this camera. And so, yeah, for me, it's a con that it's all touchscreen. It's too swipey, it's too sensitive sometimes, not sensitive enough other times. Please give us like a little toggle dial or a couple extra custom buttons, and this thing would be that extra little bit more pro. So maybe they have that in the works. Maybe they have a pro version coming, who knows? Even though it works really great straight out of the box, as you have seen in our initial impressions when Katarina used it, in order to sort of elevate the footage and your experience with the camera, you're gonna need a few things to take it to that next level. I don't necessarily think you need the creator combo, because if you already have a mic like I did, or a little tripod like I did, the creator combo just gives you extra accessories that you have to then worry with or deal with. But there are a few things that I do think you need. So you do maybe need a little mini tripod in some certain situations. If you want the best sound possible in sort of louder environments like this and you already have a mic, great. But if not, there are cheaper options than the DJI mic. Like the Synco P2S, I've talked about that before. And for me personally, I think the most important thing are the ND filters that you need. So then suddenly that raises the price of this camera, which is already around 600 euros, to closer to 7, 8, and that no longer becomes like sort of a budget option. The other thing that I don't love is the fact that ND filters are a necessity, but they're a bit of a pain in the ass. Like, even though they're easy to snap on because they're magnetic, getting them on and off without getting fingerprint smudges on them has been such a struggle for us. And the ones I use are from K&F Concept, and I like those because they're super slim and you're able to turn off the Osmo Pocket 3 and keep the filters on. Because they're slim, they're just super finicky to grab, and that to me maybe sounds like a nitpick, but something that I have to deal with constantly, changing the filters and putting them on and off, that nitpick becomes an annoyance, and enough annoyances over time using them day in and day out becomes a con for me. This next one that I'm going to talk about is kind of a con, but it's more of a matter of fact. I think with any camera, in order to get the best image possible, you have to learn the fundamentals of filmmaking. Because someone who's interested in this camera, who's a beginner and may not know those fundamentals, they're gonna go out, watch a bunch of YouTube videos, mine included, see that this camera puts out an amazing image. They're gonna purchase it, they're gonna shoot with it, and they're gonna be like, why doesn't my video look like all the videos that I've seen? And I think it's important to note that if you want the same cinematic, whatever you want to call it, type of images, you do have to learn those fundamentals, like the 180-degree shutter rule, what ISO does to your image. And if you invest the time in learning those things, you're going to be able to extract a great image out of not only this camera, but any camera. So the very first pro is the size of this camera, because this thing is so small, it can literally fit anywhere. And because of that, you can try to get really unique shots, get super creative with it, and in a place where it's super busy out, no one really looks twice because it doesn't look like this pro rig that draws a lot of attention. When we were traveling throughout Portugal and Madeira, we had this thing out and I was using it so much and no one even thinks about it. Yeah, it looks like almost nothing. So you're really able to confidently film either vlog shots like this that are casual, but also get some of those really super ultra cinematic shots and it doesn't draw any attention. Pro number 2, and this is a big one because basically this is the reason why the Osmo Pocket 3 became so popular all of last year and even into this year, and it's the image quality. By now you've probably seen tons of footage of people using this camera, and honestly, like even when I picked it up, I was a little skeptical, but I was blown away by some of the images that this sensor puts out. It's a 1-inch sensor, which is, I wouldn't say rare, but a little more less found in these small specialty type cameras. And the fact that it has great dynamic range, it's incredible in low light, is just amazing. And so you have just such confidence when you pull out this camera that you know you're gonna have some sort of an image that you're gonna be able to use in just casual work, but maybe even some client work, and even up to those like super high-end professional works for certain situations. Okay, so the next pro is the fact that this camera has a mechanical gimbal built into it. And I know in this day and age, there's a lot of cameras with digital stabilization, but the thing about having a gimbal built in is you can get some shots that are just super smooth and cinematic, and it just moves differently. It eases in and it eases out of the motions that sometimes your hands just can't do, especially for those sort of orbit and spinning type shots, or those shots where you're pushing towards something and then angling up. You just don't have that precise movement with your arms the way you do when you're using the gimbal like this. It provides the option to also do some active tracking, so it can follow you around. It can give you the opportunity to do some cool intro shots that I've kind of used it for before. And the active track has some of its own little cons, like sometimes it's a little too jerky, and same with the gimbal, but for the most part, this gimbal is super smooth and definitely a huge pro and plus for this camera. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about that was a pro is the battery life on the Osmo Pocket 3. Honestly, I shoot with it all day long and it typically lasts the entire day. But if it does die, what's really awesome about it is it has fast charging. So you can get it up to 80% charge level in about 15 minutes. And when you are a creator, and especially when you're traveling around, you have so much gear to charge and to worry about that having fast charge on any of your devices is really, really clutch. The next pro is the build quality. Because even though the Osmo Pocket 3 is plastic, like the typical plastic that DJ always uses, it has withstood some sort of precarious situations that we've put it in. When we were doing our hike in Pico de Pico in Madeira, we had mentioned in that video that it was raining and misting quite a bit. So it withstood that. It's not weather sealed, so I wouldn't put it through like a torrential downpour, but even in some of that mist, some light rain, it held up okay. We were on a shoot sort of recently and it was sitting on a seat bench, maybe sort of like this. And fortunately, Katerina bumped the seat and the camera fell to the floor, and So from sitting height, and it was fine. It looked much more disastrous.
It sounded disastrous.
Yeah, the gimbal was kind of tweaked, and then the ND filter went flying. So it was a bit of like a little scare, heart attack, but it's held up great. I have a little screen protector for this little LED screen that came with the K&F ND filters. So that's been good. It's made out of glass. So overall, it's held up well. So I would say that the build quality is going to be good. The case is actually quite great. Here, let me pull it out. The case that comes with this is actually not too shabby. You can have a couple places to put your ND filters. The thing that I don't like about this, so actual little con here, is that I find it a little bulky. When you take the case off, you have to put it somewhere. So oftentimes I will just take the Osmo Pocket 3 and just slip it into my pocket without the case, and it works. It's fine. When I first got it, I was a little bit freaked out when it would twist and move, but honestly, it locks back into place, and it's been really good even without the case. I don't do it often, but in a situation where I need to shoot a lot and shoot quickly, I'll just don't even use the case. So build quality, pro. The next one is a bonus. It's a pro for the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 that DJI actually is quite good with the firmware updates. Now, they have done 2 firmware updates on this, but one of the things that they added that I have come to love and appreciate is the cancel recording. So you can start recording a clip, and if for some reason you don't like it, you just hold down the record button and you can cancel that clip. Because a lot of times when I'm doing talking heads like this, or I've done shots when I was in Portugal trying to do the intro to a video, there might be someone who crosses into the frame, or I forget my line, which happens often, or maybe in Berlin, there's a sudden police siren that is in the background and it just ruins the shot. So instead of having to stop the recording, swipe over, hit the 3 buttons, hit delete, you can just hold it down and it's done right away. So instead of a 3 movement thing, it's just 1 movement and you're done and you can restart. See, just like that. But I'm gonna keep this clip. The other thing is the DJI Mimo app is actually really, really, really great. It connects quickly to your phone. You can use it to monitor, you can use it to activate the active tracking. But what I really love it for is when I'm shooting the vertical content and I want to share it right away onto Instagram or something, it's a seamless process. It's super, super fast. And so for someone who has an active social media presence, that's really great. You can get things up in real time. But also for people who are a social media manager of different businesses and brands and accounts, they can use this camera and they can just transfer the footage to their phone right away and post it onto their accounts. So they can do a lot of things in real time, and that's really valuable for a lot of brands these days. So what are my final thoughts? Well, no camera is perfect. And we talked about the pros and cons of this camera here today, but I think that the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 has rightfully earned its place with how popular it is. It's a small, portable camera package that puts out an image that punches above its weight. You can keep this camera really simple for the casual user, but with the right adjustments, I think even a professional can find it really valuable for their work. But that's pretty much it. I think the most important thing about this camera for me is that I have so much fun using it. So if you know someone who's thinking about this camera and would find this video valuable, then consider sharing it with them. If you enjoyed the video yourself, then thank you for watching and consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. And as always, live passionately and stay inspired. Bye.